doing push-ups. I've been doing sit-ups. I've been doing chin-ups. I've been doing pull-ups. I threw up once, but I'm okay now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Ysn Power Hour. DJ Yoakley with you here on this Tuesday, which has been so great. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss. We had great conversation yesterday and even into today on Running Point about the power rankings, and then the Casual Sports Podcast knocked down exactly what you can expect on the network tonight from the volleyball perspective. We'll get our banner up here. There we go. And we're off and running the right way. I want to start off by thanking our sponsors down in the right-hand corner of the screen, making everything possible for you completely free and supporting us in all of our endeavors. So thank you very much. And if you'd like to become a sponsor or an advertiser on YSN, head over to ysnlive.com/advertise. Super easy, super simple. You'll be up on the show. You'll be up on the games, all the events we do at YSN, and you can be up and going in a matter of hours here on the network. Brian Scott's made it super simple for you to be able to be part of what we're doing. With all that said, we're going to get to kind of an interesting, based on points, one of the offline gurus, as I say, Mike Swinehart, who's been a friend of the program for a very, very long time, kind of broke down and gave us some statistics of what things would look like if we went by computer points in our power rankings, rather than kind of the heart and the head factor here at YSN. But before we do any of that, it's time for On This Day in Sports History. Here we go. All right, so on this day in sports history, I'm kind of pulling this one up as we go, so you'll have to forgive me here. Here we go. In 1965, on this day, the 13th of September, Willie Mays hits his 500th home run, giving the Giants their 11th straight and consecutive win in 1965. So that leads me to kind of draw your attention to the simple fact that Albert Pujols quietly is doing one of the best jobs of closing out a career that I've ever seen. Albert has made his money. He's done seemingly everything the right way. And when you look at Albert Pujols' career, there's a lot of people that have taken Pujols for granted. I mean, he's been a Cardinal twice now. He's been an Angel, a Dodger. I think that's where it ends, because he came back to the Cardinals. I think that's it. Why do I feel like there's one more team out there that Pujols was with? Maybe not. Maybe that's it. But I read a story today that, as these players get up in age, and as we all do, we kind of want these mementos to hold on to. We want these things that we get. So home run balls are a big thing in baseball. Pujols hits home run 697 yesterday, the day before, earlier this week. And he hits it to a fan who had lost somebody significant. I think it was her father on that same exact day. It was the anniversary of his death. And Pujols, instead of requesting the ball back, said, "That ball means more to you than it will to me. So please take it." And not only did he allow her to keep the ball, but he gave her autograph merch and things of that nature. I think 2 more autograph baseballs from Albert Pujols, which just goes to show, like, nobody more than I rooting for this guy to hit 700 home runs. He's now surpassed Alex Rodriguez, deservedly so. Not an A-Rod fan by any stretch of the imagination. Like, dude played great, but was it him, or was it the stuff he was putting in it? Was it the juice? Because he's kind of a turd when it comes to you being a human being. Like, not a nice person at all. So, and that could be just his persona he plays. But to me, I've seen a lot of his stuff. You know, he's very smart. He's very cutthroat, but he's a turd when it comes to just being a genuine human being. Like, if you watch the Jeter documentary, I thought I would like him more. I like him way less. And now my wife, like, foams at the mouth every time that she sees him on television. She'll change a channel. Like, it's that bad. So guys like Albert Pujols, really true good guys in sports, it's nice to see kind of coming out of his shell as the latter stages of his career wind down. Cardinals are going to be, like, interesting. It's going to be interesting for them because they lose Albert Pujols, who is an all-time great in the organization, naturally going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer in 5 years. And you got Yadier Molina, who is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and they're going to lose him as well. And again, not that this is a national show, but things you guys should know moving forward. Just appreciate that greatness just a little bit. Squeeze that last juice out of the orange, and watch it, you know, as much as you can, because, you know, we got a taste of it. We all get a taste of it, right? You know, Roethlisberger last year for Steelers fans. You know, people go back and you know, Kozar didn't retire a Brown, but people kind of, especially around here, were, you know, just trying to juice one more snap out of Bernie. And they would, I'm sure, love to see him wrapped up his career in Cleveland. However, that wasn't the case. So I guess my thing is just enjoy the last few great days of some greatness of baseball, because, you know, you just never know when guys like that are going to come around again in the sport. So thank you, Albert, for being not only a stand-up guy on the field, but off the field as well, because I'm sure that made that individual's night and probably their life. And that ball is going to be in high regard for the rest of their days. So congratulations on being that guy. All right. We are going to talk about something very interesting today. We're going to talk about, you know, our power rankings, which are starting to pick up steam a little bit based on the time of the year. Now we're a month, hard to believe, we're a month into football, 4 weeks into football. And we have, interestingly enough, when we get these votes going for tallies for where teams should end up on the power rankings, the majority of us, I think one or two people probably look at Joe Idol and try to scan that and try to bring what they call as legitimacy. I call the eye test. You know, do they pass the eye test? Do they pass, you know, are they winning good games? Are they winning games that they're supposed to be winning? Are they winning games they're not supposed to be winning? And that's kind of how I put my stuff together. It's less of who I like and more of what am I seeing? What am I seeing from that scenario? From, is this a team that is going to make an impact? Are they a splash team? You know, splash teams I think are more 6 through 10. We always thought that would be the biggest shuffle of our power rankings. But what we're seeing is Fitch started, for better for worse, nobody knew what Fitch had. And now Fitch is sitting at the top of the standings at number 1, flipping over Canfield after Canfield put a beat down on their opponent last week, 42-0. One that I'm really, really interested in, kind of how people voted, because I think they're voting they're looking at scoreboard. They're scoreboard watching at the end of the night. You know, they're watching the audible call, and then they're saying Fitch is constantly on that hype machine. You know, they're beating some good teams in Ursuline and arguably one of the most challenging schedules in anybody that is in the YSN network is Austintown Fitch. I would put Ursuline up there. I certainly would put Canfield up there. But we're going to bring some validity to some of these teams as, again, Mike Swinehart, an excellent job, as I'm going to bring this over here so I can kind of double screen it, if you will, and discuss kind of how things stack up. So Mike sent Anthony and I a note today, and there's 17 teams on this list. 17 teams on this list. I apologize. I don't have a graphic for it. Maybe we'll put a story together. Credit to, again, the Swine Man. He's out there. One of the best. Like, I've courted him probably 100 times and said, we need you to join what we do. And he's always so gracious to put together little nuggets like this that, like, when you hear this, and see how I'm trying to stretch it out a little bit. When you hear this, you're going to be very surprised. So these are all YSN teams, 17 different YSN teams stacked up. And this is how they would be in our power rankings if we went by the computer points, a la Joe Idol. Okay, so number one, let's go backwards. Let's do a David Letterman style. Let's go backwards. So number 17, Jackson Milton. Jackson Milton with 4.55 computer points would be the number 17 team in the YSN power ranking. So everybody looking, I mean, we've talked about this. Richie and I talked about it yesterday. We kind of glazed over it today. Jackson Milton, Mineral Ridge, and Lowville are all kind of like lassoed into one little corner because the computer points that they're gaining and the teams that they're beating haven't really beat anybody. You know, they're struggling to beat teams that have big wins or multiple wins, but they're all going to play each other now. So now it's going to get really fascinating to see who is the true leader of the pack, so to speak, in the MVAC. Springfield, everybody's already counted them out. That's not the case with us. I still think Sean Guerrero and his team make a run, and feasibly, if they make a run, make the playoffs. There's an article we're going to talk about in a little bit that Steve Rubin did a phenomenal job on. There's teams that are already in playoffs. Lowville, one of them. Okay. Jackson Milton, again, number 17 with 4.55 computer points. At 4.6 at number 16 is Lowville. So the computer points have not been very kind to Lowville either. Although in Division 7, Lowville is now promised a spot in the playoffs with what they've done. They've got enough points to get them into the playoffs, which tells you all you need to know about Division 7. It is kind of the tale of two halves. You got a lot of teams that are top heavy and a lot of teams that are bottom heavy. Now the question is, at some point, does this even out, or are we going to see this the rest of the year? Are we going to see teams that are just really good and really bad in D7? And that's, to me, that's an interesting argument because you can't really argue records other than if you're playing up every single game for 10 games, like we get, you know, even Ursuline this year, I think, isn't playing up as much because they had to get that game in with Brookfield because of a loss on the schedule. So it's to me, it's going to be very interesting to see where Lowville goes from here. Do they have the horses? 100%. 100%. You look at all the guys on that team. This is a very, very good team. But unfortunately, you remember when Springfield went 9-1 and didn't make the playoffs? Lowville is not going to have to deal with that. But what Lowville is going to do is what team is truly going to test Lowville this year? You know, I thought it was going to be Springfield. And I think Springfield still tested them. And people are going to write it off as a failed experiment, a failure for Springfield in week 4. Springfield could have put that game away. They don't have the experience that Lowville has this year. But they got something from that game. And I'm not sitting here and you know, rattling the cage for the Tigers. But there's something that Sean Guerrero is going to take from that tape. And he's certainly, to my estimation, Sean is going to have his guys learn from that experience. They're learning from all of these experiences. It's been a while since we've seen an 0-4 Springfield Tiger team. It's been a long time. Louisville is on that opposite trajectory. They're the team that everybody's looking at in shock and awe, even though you've got one of the best quarterbacks in all of the country, let alone the state. This kid's making huge marks here in Louisville, Ohio, and good for him. And everything that Louisville has been through, from on the floor, on the field, off the field, whatever it may be, it's a little bit of the shine and the gleam on Louisville that deserves to be there. And he and his teammates are doing a phenomenal job. The Balone and the boys are continuing to stretch it out. So they are at number 16 computer rankings wise. So the question starts is anybody going to test them? Will Louisville lose a game? I mean, they're tested this week. They're certainly going to be tested this week against Jackson Milton. I think Mineral Ridge can test them. There's a lot of people that are really high on Ridge. Speaking of, Ridge listed at number 14. Now there's a tie for 14. There's a tie for 14 based on computer rankings. Mineral Ridge at this point has more computer points than Louisville with 4.875. Louisville has 4.6. Ridge has 4.875. So what does that tell us? It tells us that, some quality wins in there, in that 4 wins, beating some quality opponents. But you look at Ridge and when these two teams play, when they lock horns, so to speak, is this game a bigger game than Louisville-Milton this week? I guess it depends on who wins, right? It depends on if Jackson Milton, which that game is at home for them, if they're able to beat Louisville, naturally they will accrue points. Whoever wins that game is going to accrue some points and probably go right up these charts from the computer point standpoint. But you got Ridge kind of waiting in the wings, being able to watch this game a little bit, primetime game, be a lot of attention on it. It's going to be some good film to watch, some up close and personal stuff that Ridge is going to have access to. They just got to keep doing what they do. And then tied for the number 14 spot on computer rankings with this team, which is interesting. Garfield. Garrettsville Garfield, also 4.875. So those two knotted at 14. Garfield's a team that I think people just thought would go away this year, and that's not the case. It's not the case at all. Nor will I think it ever will be, because Garfield has a program. Garfield is like how do I explain it to people not familiar with Garrettsville Garfield? Garfield is the equivalent of South Range and how they do things. It's you're built into the program, you optimize the program, and you control the program. Garfield, South Range, very similar in kind of their work ethic, the way they do business, the way they present themselves. It's very blue collar. And Garfield, to me, is never going to be out of a game. Never going to be out of a game. I'd be reluctant to say that they're never going to get blown out. You're never going to get your hands on Garfield and just push them around. They're always going to give you a game. They're that physical. They can play. We saw it last year. That LeBray game that they played, one of the best games I've ever seen. Coached, executed. The players were able to do exactly what they needed to do against one of the best teams, athletic teams we've ever seen in LeBray. And that's when I knew that Garfield was for real. That was their first year on the network, and seemingly this is just another notch in the belt for our friends in Garrettsville. Just doing what they do better than anybody from that standpoint. It's hard to build programs anymore based on the ebbs and flows of your classes and talent and things of that nature. But teams like Garfield seem to do it. That's number 14. Number 13, we have Salem. This one to me is intriguing because I'm gonna put it out there. I was very high on Salem prior to the beginning of the year when they played Crestview, and I'm not down in Crestview at all, because I think Crestview is a team that deserves recognition, and especially right now deserves a game, either by forfeit or by, getting another team in there after the Liberty announcement yesterday. Salem is susceptible. They've left themselves wide open. And I think teams which last year they couldn't key on just Jackson Johnson because Blaze Exline would make you pay. Jackson would toss it up and Exline would just go get it. Not that there's not that receiver this year because we thought Jackson might be able to find him. But teams are keying on Jackson. They're keying on the American Missile. And they're looking to him as if we shut him down, we win the game, we beat Salem. Or at least we keep it close to where Canton Central Catholic did last week to where they could win the game. Put themselves in a position to win the game. That's what they did. They played a high level. I mean, you're talking about a team that just a week before lost, I'm going to say handily, to South Range. Other people are going to look at that score and say, well, wait a minute. There were a couple late scores in that game. It was well in hand before, Tri-C was able to push the ball down the field and make it a little bit tighter of a game. There were also some reserves in. That's no excuse. But if we're going apples to apples, South Range handled that game. They handled Tri-C, and Tri-C didn't like that, and they took it out on Salem, which is a team that's in Division 4. And that's going to help Canton Central Catholic down the line. It's also going to hurt Salem a bit as well, and it already has because you look at them at number 13. They were number 7 in our power rankings. They slid right off the board. People were ready to pass on Salem after that Crestview. I'm telling you. The voters were there. They saw it. It doesn't matter what they did in those other 2 games before Tri-C. It was very, very challenging for voters to look at Salem with the same respect, even though they blew the doors off of East Liverpool. It was, what did you do against Crestview week 1? And why couldn't you do more? Crestview kept that a close game. And people were talking about Crestview like they were down because Anthony Cusick and that whole class of 2022 graduates. You didn't know what Kirkland Miller has to offer under center. He's an athlete. Is Rockland Batura going to be, is he going to be healthy? And Batura is tearing it up. That Crestview offense is figuring things out quick. And Miller is finding his stride. The problem is Crestview has depth. Salem does not, at least to my knowledge, at least to what I'm looking at. Salem, if you shut down 11, it's going to be tough for them to win. And that's the problem when you have really talented guys at positions, right? 5 fingers make a fist. It's hard to fight with this. And I'm not saying that there's not more than one guy out there, but we're having a hard time finding him for Salem right now. And that's going to be, for Ron John, that's going to be a task that he's going to have to do not only this week, but moving forward, is trying to find another playmaker to kind of relieve Jackson Johnson, at least distract people from Jackson. Salem is one of those teams I look at and I think they could be in trouble this season. Does Jackson put up numbers? I think he absolutely can. But people are going to be keying on him. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. He's a quarterback. He's a game changer. He can beat you with his arm. He can beat you with his legs. But at the end of the day, is he going to be enough? Can he find another playmaker that they can go Batman and Robin all the way through week 10? Because you know who's waiting? The team in green, they're waiting for another chance at Salem. That game is the best rivalry. I will argue it up and down all day. And I feel embarrassed that I forgot about it when we talked about rivalries just a few weeks ago. That's the best rivalry locally, and it's not close. I love the Holy War, Poland, Canfield. I mean, you can go up and down Beaver local, East Liverpool. Throw the records out the window when you're talking about Salem and West Branch. Does not matter. And you just hope it's not the last game for Jackson Johnson this year. You hope Salem's got a chance. I mean, they're sitting there. They got a shot. They're 3-1. I don't want to talk about them like they're dead. They're number 13 in the computer rankings out of all the teams in YSN. So they've got a shot at if we had our own playoff system and 16 teams got in, Salem's in. Above them, a team that still has not cracked the top 10 on YSN, and it's Southern. And I'm baffled. And I think it really is. We get heat all the time because, we don't give enough credit to the Trumbull County teams or at least from the optics of it. And once time I did understand that. When we were very, very young, I did understand that but now that's not the case. It's not the case at all. Trumbull gets as much love, if not more, than Mahoning and Columbiana, and especially the outskirts, all the other counties that we cover beyond the main three. Trumbull gets their love. I'm almost, again, I'm going to say embarrassed. I'm almost embarrassed that more people don't know about Southern Local. Southern Local, Rich Wright have done an excellent job of kind of rebranding themselves, rebuilding a new culture in Salineville at the Wigwam. And they've done it the right way. They've done it brick by brick. They didn't change everything overnight. They changed the culture. They changed the way that they want to prepare both mentally, physically. And it changed everything about what they did, except for the fact that they go old school. It's wing T. It's they're running. You don't know who's coming at you, but they are. Southern is a very good team at number 12, 5.475 computer points. And you're going to be really shocked. I'm going to say this, and people gave us, we're still getting messages about our power rankings. And one team, their fall from grace after a week 4 loss. And that team is coming up next. We're going to take a break, and I'll tell you exactly. That is how you tease, ladies and gentlemen. That is how you tease. I'll take a break. We'll be back on the YSN Power Hour right after this on YSN.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, we offer a worry-free experience for all our customers. From sales to financing and even service, we'll help build your perfect vehicle
and lock in your trade value
while your vehicle is being built.
No worries.
We guarantee financing,
regardless of your situation or credit history.
No worries. And when your vehicle needs service,
our award-winning team will get you back on the road.
No worries.
That's what going the extra mile means. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Change. This one word can make you break out in a cold sweat. But with change comes wisdom, experience, and understanding. At Myers Family Insurance, we can help make changes in Medicare, insurance, and retirement a positive experience for you and your family. We've gone through changes, like our new office and new faces to help our family of clients too.
For all your Medicare needs, call Myers Family Insurance. Check us out online at MyersFamilyINS.com or find us on Facebook.
You're not waiting to see what the world has in store for you. It's more about what you have in store for the world. All you need is the opportunity. All you need are the resources of a large university and the advantages of a personalized academic setting where you can experience new worlds in the arts and sciences, business, and education and make them your own. We are where you shape your future. We are Youngstown State University and proud.
Hi, I'm Colin Chupa.
And I'm Kelsey Clem from K-Squared Marketing.
Our boutique marketing firm specializes in media planning and buying, public relations, event marketing strategies, and strategic sponsorships.
We can integrate our services with your existing game plan, or we can be your entire marketing team.
Your goals, our game plan.
Let's win together. Call K-Squared Marketing at 330-623-2730 or visit ksquared.marketing to learn more.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ysn Power Hour. DJ Yoakley with you, having a great conversation about some of the computer rankings. And we turn over to, let's catch up on some comments here as we get, Kristen Seidler says, it's tough with one loss. It is. The participation trophy should be over, and I believe they are. It's enough to get 16 teams in the playoffs. Somewhere there's got to be some accountability, and I think we're trying to keep teams accountable here. It is what it is. It's obviously opinion based, but Mike Swiney, the OG himself, says, I forgot about Edgewood. They would be between Salem and Garfield / Mineral Ridge with 5.025 in computer points. So we'll kind of reverse it. So they're going to be between Salem and Garfield. Okay. So Jackson Milton at 17, Lowellville at 16. Then you've got Garfield and Mineral Ridge tied at 14. Then you would have Edgewood with their 5.02 points. Then you have Salem at 13. We talked about Southern at 12. Ladies and gentlemen, this was one that I didn't see coming. This is one that I understand and I don't. I think what hurt them, they got a big win over a smaller team in week 1. And unfortunately, the Ursuline way, so to speak, of scheduling up, that one game that they scheduled down hurt them. And what's crazy is how much that one win last week would have helped them. Probably would have stamped their ticket right into the playoffs had they beat Austintown Fitch. But they didn't. And now they sit at number 11 in our computer rankings of YSN teams with 5.6742. So if we had a top 10, if we're going by the law, letter of the law, and we're going by computer points, they're not in the top 10. Yet all this week, all we hear about is how we're unfair of taking a number 4 ranked Ursuline Irish football team. They lose to a team that is now the number 1 team, and they slide down to 10. Tough potatoes. That's tough. Life's tough. And again, not that these are not just opinions, but there's some validity to it now. When you look at the computer points, you look at the numbers, Ursuline, if we were going by computer points, would not be in the top 10 of what we do. And I think that is a wake-up call. Now, when you look at the rest of their schedule, it certainly is going to be showcased in perfect trimmings for another playoff appearance, if you're asking my personal opinion. And if you're watching, you are, and I appreciate it. Ursuline's not done yet. Ursuline beat a tough Farrell team, which I don't know how. I'm going to be fully transparent. Not a clue as to how that is translated between Pennsylvania and Ohio. But obviously it doesn't translate very well because you got Ursuline in the 11th seat looking in to the top 10 here of computer points of YSN affiliated teams. So who are those top 10 teams, you ask? Well, let's get to them. One that's going to surprise you and people are going to lose their cool. It's an Edison team. The Edison Wildcats. Richmond Edison. A lot of people in Youngstown, Trumbull County are saying, who? Richmond Edison. A team that had struggled to win a game just 2 short years ago are not only back, but back with a vengeance. That new field, I mean, they got a new baseball field, new football field, new softball. I mean, that whole facility over there is absolutely gorgeous. And the players are living up to their facilities because they are rocking the world and shocking the world as they sit in at number 10 with 5.8 even computer points. So then where do you go from here? You might ask. Well, we can't talk about some of these teams. Some of these teams, oh my goodness. You've already talked about Jackson, Milton, and Lowellville, and Mineral Ridge, and Garfield, and Salem, and Southern, and Edgewood, and Ursuline, and now Edison. And number 9, it has to be someone who is going to appease the people, right? It's got to be America's team. To me, this is the most polarizing team on all of the network. You either really like this team or you really just don't agree with them being anywhere near the top 10. But I'm here to tell you, the computer points don't lie. Valley Christian, your number 9 team in computer points on the network at 5.825. Valley Christian over Edison, over Ursuline, over Southern, over Salem, over Garfield, over Edgewood, over Mineral Ridge, over Lowville, over Jackson Milton. The same thing that Andy Hake has been telling me for 5 weeks has come to fruition. I love Andy Hake. Big fan. Good friend. And he shoots me straight. Always. That's why I know when he's telling me we're better than this team, we're better than this team, we're better than this team, we're better than this team. I'm only one vote in the power rankings. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I voted Valley Christian number 1. I'm not even going to say that I voted them in the top 10 over the last 4 weeks. But when I got a chance to see them on Saturday night against a very talented United team, I saw a team, I saw a staff, and I saw fans that not only had expectations that were, we win this conference tonight. I saw kids playing for their staff. I saw kids playing for each other. I saw a coaching staff that coached their ass off for those kids on that field. When Valley Christian was adopted into the EOAC, there were a lot of eyebrows raised. A lot of eyebrows raised because you just didn't know what you were getting. Fast forward about a year, and then all of a sudden you've got Andy Hake at the helm, a guy that, again, one of the most polarizing figures in all of the Mahoning Valley. You either embrace it or you walk away from it. And he's got those kids playing with their hair on fire. He has that coaching staff understanding that almost Bill Belichick-esque, very different personalities, but very similar strategies, is that everybody does their job. And to watch it happen on the sidelines was something, it was like watching almost a really, really good symphony, right? You got the conductor and everybody is playing the right notes. That's what Andy Hake did. And he's not going to take all the credit by any means. But any coach will tell you that when you can get kids to play for you, and you got guys that want to run through a wall for you and give you the very shirt off their back, you're going to win some games. You're going to win some games. You're going to be close in some games, and you're going to have some opportunities for some great memories. Let's get to, that was number 9. So Valley's in at number 9, again, with 5.825. Number 8, ladies and gentlemen, number 8 is going to shock you. My boy Sammy, out in 440 in Goal Land, told us straight up Jefferson is the dudes. They are the guys. This isn't your grandma's Jefferson area school district. This is a new era. Grant Hitchcock and the boys, Coach Hannah, turning it up, putting this thing on its ear, and then stepped up last week against a very good Girard team and came up ultimately short. But I will tell you this, Jefferson is in at number 8 with 6.275 computer points. That means they're beating some teams. Those 3 wins that they have, they're pretty special. And that's a tough loss to Girard, but Girard's above you. Girard is in a situation where they are above you in these computer points, and mostly, probably, I mean, Streetsboro helped a lot, but a lot of that goes to beating Jefferson. Whoever won that game was going to take an absolute skyrocket up the rankings, and give credit to Girard because they did. So much so, ladies and gentlemen, you're expecting me to say Girard right now, aren't you? No. number 7 is South Range. The South Range Raiders come in with 7.4 computer points and are 7 on this list. So all the people that, I get it. I understand it. Listen, people sit there and they hear me talk about South Range and South Range. But listen, it's what I know. It's what I understand. It's what I see each and every week. I see South Range, the voice of the Raiders. That's what I'm going to see. That's how I'm going to vote, because they haven't lost a regular season game since 2019. So how do I vote against that? I don't vote them number 1, because I think that, especially after last week, there's work to be done. But there's people that didn't vote South Range at all. Took them out of their power rankings after a close call against Struthers. That's interesting to me. But the validation's there. It's here. I was confused. I pulled out all the rest of my hair trying to understand how these people did not put the Raiders in the top 10. Who's better than South Range? Show me 9 teams, 10 teams that are better than South Range. I thought, and I sat there and I'm looking at all the teams, and then I see this. Swiney sends this over, and South Range computer points at number 7. So now I understand. There's other teams that could be in there. You look at 8, 9, 10, all the way through 17. How does Jackson Milton not get into the top 10? Well, that's computer points. Well, South Range, if all things were equal, would be our number 7 team, and I think they're number 3 in our power rankings. I think that changes, though. I think that changes starting this week with Poland, because if South Range is able to continue to get wins, as they have in the NE8 over teams that are bigger than them, you're going to start stacking points like pancakes, and you'll see the rise in the charts, especially in 2 weeks when they play Girard, who we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But before we get to Girard, we got to talk about a couple more teams. Yes, a couple more teams, and then Girard. The Power G over my left shoulder here. West Branch in at number 6. So West Branch isn't even in the top 5. And in fact, there's people that voted West Branch out of our power rankings this week. Didn't want anything to do with them. Now they've got 1 loss, but the rest really haven't been close. Drew DeShields has them pumping on all cylinders. They're going to be another team down the stretch that I think is going to rise up this chart. But however, as it stands right now on the 13th of September, West Branch sits with 7.5 points even. 7.5. Enough to be number 6 on our list. So the top 5. Okay. So in case you're just joining us, we'll recap here before we get to the top 5. So 17 is Jackson Milton. 16 is Louisville. A tie for 14 with Garfield and Mineral Ridge. And then inserted between 14 and 13 is like 13.5. You got Edgewood. Then you got Salem at 13. Southern at 12. Ursuline at 11. Edison at 10. Valley Christian at 9. Number 8 is going to bring you Jefferson. Number 7 is South Range. Number 6 is West Branch. So the top 5. This is where it gets interesting. This is where actually the top 3 is where it gets really interesting. So we'll wait. Number 5 is Cheney. The Cheney Cowboys, who are 4-0, one of the most athletic teams in all of the Valley. A team that, I got to be honest, I don't think anybody gives near enough respect to. And certainly they don't give enough respect to Seth Antrim and what he's done in his first year as head coach of the Cowboys. People talk about first-year head coaches all the time. And with all due respect, it is a challenge. But I think Seth had a leg up knowing what he had in the cupboard. Knowing that the handoff from Chris Mill to Seth Antrim, essentially, was one that Seth can make one phone call, Chris picks up, and these two are talking the same language because they coached with each other. Seth has them playing mission-driven football. This Cheney team is on a mission. Now it's going to be interesting. This week, Canfield and Cheney meet up. Cheney's home field. They got all of the home cooking. And both of these teams, as I'm sure we'll talk about this week with Dana Balish and the team at 21 Sports, this Cheney team is in the same boat as the Canfield Cardinals. They both need this game. Very similar to the Louisville-Jackson Milton game. Both of these teams need this game. But when you look at these computer points, you got a number 5 team in Cheney that needs it just a little bit more. Just a little bit more than a Canfield team. But don't tell that to the Cardinals. Because you got to believe that the Denny Inglis and Brock Lowry, I mean, the Cardinals are going to, I mean, Inglis had 3 touchdowns, I believe, in that last game. Taking a little pressure off of Brock. But do not tell me that you're going to let Brock Lowry do what he does and have a chance of winning this game. To me, first and foremost, as we talked about with Salem, Cheney has to shut down Lowry. At least make it imbalanced so you know what to expect. Canfield has done basically what they wanted to do to this point in the season. There was a scare earlier with Cheney, with Cardinal Mooney. And although I think an awful lot of AOB, Ashton O'Brien, and what he can do behind center, and Nolan Radinsky, and what he can do from the outside as Mr. Reliable, I'm telling you this, just as South Range probably couldn't win with 6 turnovers against anybody on the rest of their schedule, or probably couldn't do it again against Struthers, if Cheney allows Canfield to play balanced football, it is going to be a struggle for them to walk away with the win. It's going to be a struggle for them to walk if that happens. However, I prefaced all of this by saying Cheney's the most athletic team that we have, not only in the area, but I would argue on the entire network. If Canfield allows Cheney to get loose, and it comes down to dudes versus dudes, Cheney's going to walk away with this game. I'm not talking like runaway. I'm talking walk away. And it might be a walk off. Special teams is something that is going to be accounted for in this game. But as far as it goes here, Cheney's ranked number 5. And to me, they need just a little bit more than Canfield. So I'll be interested to see if they crank it up to 11 instead of 10 this week against Canfield. Number 4, we talked about him already. Power G, baby. Pat Pearson and the Girard Indians with 8.125. That Streetsboro win, that was an escalator. That was an escalator to the top. And now they sit just outside of the top 3. But again, their biggest days are ahead of them. You're telling me in 2 weeks that the game of the matchup of the week, the year in the NE8 isn't Girard versus South Range? But let's not get too excited. They got to get through this week first. Girard is another team. I never thought that I would hear people talk about Girard in the context that we do now. When we started this, it was the days of Mark Wade. And nobody picked against Girard. Everybody was Power G's. And one thing I know is that when Girard is winning or losing, Girard shows up. And I'm not just talking about their teams. Their fans show up, and it's an atmosphere unlike any other. So it's going to be exciting to see. It's good to see them at number 4. I'll say that. I'm happy for Coach Pat. I'm happy for these guys. You know, when you talk about some of the star power that they have, that gets overshadowed by other teams, as we've already talked about, even in their own conference. Guys like Michael Palmer, once in a lifetime student athletes, once in a lifetime athletes in general. Guys that are very, very well spoken off the field and are very good on it. That's why you've got Gerard sitting at number 4. So now you get to our top 3. Okay. And again, Gerard, by the way, 8.125, if I didn't say that before. Top 3. Whose 3 names we haven't heard yet? Whose 3 names we're all excited about and seemingly are always there when push comes to shove at the end of the year, especially lately? Number 3 is going to surprise you. Number 3, do not throw your device that you're watching us on. It's the Austintown Fitch Falcons. With 8.8 points, the Austintown Fitch Falcons, as challenging as their schedule has been, they're undefeated, and they still have 2 teams that are looking down at them from a point standpoint in the YSN family of schools and affiliated schools. Now, I know Coach Parker is not crazy about when people talk about his schedule, right? He, arguably so, will sit there and tell you what every team that's on their schedule has done, will do. I mean, you're talking about when you are discussing Austintown Fitch, you are talking about the most cerebral team on the network. Coaches, players, staff, everything they do. It's almost like when you're watching Rocky IV and Drago is out there and he's getting pumped and he's got the best technology, the best facilities. That is awesome. And not that I want you to root against him, because in the movie, everybody roots against them, right? That is Austintown Fitch. They've done so well by their student athletes, their coaches. I mean, you look at their marketing that they do. The athletic director, Russell Hauser, does a great job at just letting coaches coach their guys and gals, but facilitating. And now in Austintown, it's a snowball of what's next. And I mean that in a very positive way. This new facility that they're going to have on campus is going to be a game changer for everybody involved. But what TJ Parker specifically and his staff, their strength and conditioning program, their training program, and the buy-in that TJ had since day one, we saw it here. This was his first interview here on YSN. We saw the buy-in. Fitch plays with a chip on their shoulder. They play like they're always number 2, and yet they expect, for good reason, to be number 1. Here they're number 3 in the points, 8.8. That was probably my biggest surprise when I opened this morning. Number 2, you want to talk about tough schedules? Nobody, and I mean nobody, has a tougher schedule on paper than Warren JFK at number 2. 9.325 points, and they're sitting at second fiddle. This is a D7 program, folks, that has been there when it counts. They've won state championships. They've been to places that other teams are trying to go. Don Prologo, Richie gave him all kinds of love yesterday for a big victory over a D4 team last week in Perkins. And they sit number 2 at 9.3 points. So who could be number 1? Who could be that number 1 team that has the most points in the area of all the YSN schools? Who's that team that, just because I think where they're located and a stigma, people poo-poo them all the time and tell them how they're not who they are? Ladies and gentlemen, coming in at number one with 9.4472 points. The Canfield by God Cardinals. They can't be denied anymore. They can't be denied the schedule they play, the opponents they're playing, the way they're winning. You know, they win 42-0, and in our polls, they go from number 1 to number 2 because everybody was impressionized. Is that a word? I don't know. By what Fitch did to Ursuline. And with all due respect, I was too. It certainly made an impression on me. But at the end of the day, Canfield just keeps on winning, and they do it their way. The West Branch game was a little closer than they probably wanted, but that's a damn good West Branch team. That's a very good West Branch team. But they didn't cry over spilled milk. They just went about their business and went on with it one step at a time, 1 week at a time. They lost their coach in that Bellevue trip. Doesn't matter. Step right up. Next man up. 9.4472 to be I would argue that should make them a little peeved at where they're at in the polls this week. I questioned it. I think people got on the Fitch horse very quickly after Ursuline. They were impressed, as am I. But Canfield is winning, and it's not even close. 42-0 last week. This is all food for thought. This is all, as people continue to file in, and again, our power rankings are for fun. They're to shine a light on the way that we think. And we have spirited debates, let's call it. Not heated arguments, spirited debates inside the YSN chat. And I'll tell you this, there was a lot of people that were wondering how you can knock Canfield out, because same way this week, if Canfield beats Cheney, how can they not? We talked to Richie yesterday. How can they not flip right back in if Fitch plays anybody? Because now you're beating a top 5 team. That should flip you right back up, at least in the minds of our voters. So we'll see. We're going to have, it's going to be a great week on the network. It naturally is. We are super fortunate and super excited that Canfield and Cheney, we will have, as far as I know, we will be the only game in town. We will be the only way that you can get that unless you go to the game. And I know there's going to be a lot of you going to the game, but I promise you there's going to be a lot of eyeballs at other games on that Cheney and Canfield game. That's going to wrap up the show. Obviously, we still have to do our Spark. So as I get that ready, hang tight. Here we go. The Joe Dickey Electric Spark. Anything commercial, residential, anything electrical, you need to go over to DickeyElectric.com and call up my boy, Eric Carlson, and his team, who are the best in the business. DickeyElectric.com. Don't you forget it. Don't you dare forget it. A good spark, a positive spark today. Once again, I get to head out to Mohawk. I'm trying to think where, Bessemer. That's what it is. Bessemer. I almost said Bergenstown. That's not it. Bessemer, Pennsylvania, to check on the Lady Warriors and get our first ever bit of Pennsylvania volleyball under our belt here at YSN. Looking forward to that. It's a little bit later of a start, 7:30. So you'll have a little bit of extra volleyball to watch tonight. You can see all the games, all the coverage right here at the bottom of the screen, the ticker. Hope you're enjoying that. If you have any ideas of how we can improve that, let us know. We're always up for those thoughts and ideas. But I hope you guys had a great day. Hope you had a great time watching. You learned something, maybe something to take to the water cooler and talk about with your friends. But make sure you tell them, no matter what you do, make sure you tell them you heard it on YSN, because we are so proud to be your home for local sports. Loyal, local, and live. We'll see you tomorrow on another edition of the Ysn Power Hour. YSN thanks you for watching this presentation of